Engage the parking brake to get started. Make sure your vehicle is in park. Chalk both the rear wheels for safety so the car doesn't roll away on you. While the tire is still on the ground, that's the time to loosen the lug nuts. Just give it one turn each all the way around. So when you get it in the air, it's easier to get the wheel off. Then it's time to crank up the vehicle. We're trying to get enough clearance that we can put a jack stand underneath it for safety. Notice I'm using a pry bar, which makes life a whole lot easier. When it's up high enough, you can fit the jack stand underneath the vehicle. Look for a spot with steel supports, not the floor pan, because it'll puncture the floor pan. Lower the vehicle back down on it so that the jack stand is bearing the weight, and you're ready to start work. Finish taking off the lug nuts so you can remove the whole wheel. Now let's take a look at the problem. This sway bar link has become disconnected at the bottom. It's become corroded and popped off. So we're going to take the whole link off and replace it. These joints are notoriously rusty and corroded. They've been in the weather for the life of the vehicle, so they need a lot of oil and loosening up to get off. They're a real struggle, a real bear to loosen up. So get ready for a long fight. And once you break it loose, you've still got a lot of tension on these nuts because the bolts are so rusted, usually, and they have so much grime on them. Once you've loosened up the nut, you'll find that it depends on the style of link that you have on there. This one has a nut on each side of that plate. It has an 18mm nut on the back and on the front. The one I was loosening is also an 18mm nut. So we're going to use an 18mm box end wrench on one side to hold it and use the socket on the other side to loosen it. And they'll fight against each other until you can get that nut off. Once you've loosened the nut all the way, you can take it off and the whole link will just pop out, the top will. Now in this case the whole link came out and we can pull it out because the bottom was disconnected already. You might have to disconnect your bottom one. You can see the ball there that was corroded where the bottom of the link popped off. I'm going to use the same method I did above. At the top of the link I'm going to use a box end wrench on one nut and I'll use the socket on the other side and take it off in the exact same method. Once you've gotten it loosened up, you can take the bolt off and you have no sway bar link at all on that side. So it's time to install the new one. This new part has a different manufacturing style. It does not include the two nuts to fasten it. It just has one nut at each end. And in order to hold the bolt in place while the nuts are tightened, there's a spot for an Allen wrench. Now notice the hole is too high. Excuse me, the hole is too low, so we're going to have to raise up the wheel so that the top of the link can fit into the hole. And just jack it up to get it in place and then tap it in gently and start putting that nut on and tightening it down like normal. And you'll get on to a point where it's not making any more progress because you're going to start to turn the bolt with it, and that's when you'll have to pull out an Allen wrench. And then if you're using this part, it depends on your manufacturer. We put an Allen wrench in the end here and it will hold the bolt steady while we use a box end wrench to tighten the nut the rest of the way. It makes it a long process, but it works.
I don't use it very often. I put it in my orange toolbox. Doing the trick.
Once that's tightened up, make sure it really is tight. Test it. It should be compressed. You should see a lot of threads on that side. It should be really tight, really snug. Now it's time to do the same procedure on the bottom. We have to use an Allen wrench on the bottom also, the same way we did on the top. Once it's tight, you can go ahead and lower that wheel back down so you can put the wheel back on. Lower the vehicle, remove your jack stand, and you are finished. You have a new sway bar link, and you're ready to test drive that Taurus of yours. Congratulations.